With Donald Trump's lead growing even more after the last couple of weekends of events, we can see how his polling averages are adding up in each state. And with Kamala Harris being the new Democratic nominee, possibly after Joe Biden has dropped out of the race because of, I guess, his old age and he doesn't want to run for re-election, we can see how she's doing in each poll and where she stands in each swing state, possibly to be the new Democratic nominee for the 2024 election. And if we come over here to the new polling map, we're going to be adding each state into the Democrat and Republicans' favor. We're going to see which states are swinging Donald Trump's ways and which states are possibly swinging the new candidate, Kamala Harris. And we're going to be going over each swing state to see which candidate has the best possibility to win the 2024 election. Starting off with Donald Trump, we are going to fill in his safe states. These are the states that went for Donald Trump in 2016 and in 2020, and I see no possible way Kamala Harris is going to win these states. We're going to start off with Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, Utah, both of the Dakotas, Nebraska at large with its 1st and 3rd district, Missouri, Kansas, Oklahoma, Alaska, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, Indiana, South Carolina, Maine 2nd district, and we're going to fill in Iowa, Ohio, Florida, and Texas. Now, the reason I picked Iowa, Ohio, Florida, and Texas, because in the last couple elections, all 4 of these states have went for Donald Trump, and Donald Trump's polling in each of these states have been under the radar, and we're going to see these states go for Donald Trump in 2024. Now, starting off with Kamala Harris, these are the states I see no possible way Donald Trump is going to pick off. Even though his lead is starting to grow, we're going to see these states still vote Democratic. We're going to see the state of Washington, Oregon, California, Hawaii, Colorado, Illinois, New York, Vermont, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, New Jersey, Maryland, Delaware, and the District of Columbia, as well as Maine's 1st district. Now, I did forget one more state for Donald Trump. It was West Virginia. We're going to go ahead and fill that in as a safe Republican state. Now, starting off west with Nevada with its 6 electoral votes, this state is usually more Democratic leaning, but as we can see in this upcoming election, Donald Trump has been killing it in each of these polls in Nevada. And if we come over here to the most recent election polls in this state, we can see Insider Advantage took 800 likely voters on July 15th through the 16th, and we can see Harris versus Trump. Trump is up 10 points against Harris in the state of Nevada, making the state of Nevada a likely safe state for Donald Trump. And if we scroll down to the state of Arizona with its 11 electoral votes, Donald Trump did win this state in 2016, but Joe Biden won it in 2020. And as we can see in the most upcoming election poll, we can see even though this poll was sponsored by the Democratic Party, it still has Trump winning by 6%, making the state of Arizona a likely state for Donald Trump. Now, if we scroll over to the state of New Mexico with its 5 electoral votes, this is the state in the United States that has the most Hispanic voters. And as we can see, more Hispanics are starting to trend towards the Republican Party. And if we come over here, usually New Mexico is a pretty likely safe state for Joe Biden. He won it in 2020, big time. But as you can see in the most recent poll, we don't have Harris yet included just because this was recent where Joe Biden dropped out. But as you can see, Trump is starting to gain a lead in New Mexico. It went from 11 to 8 to 6 all the way down to 2 and 1. So we are going to be putting the state of New Mexico in the tilt margin for Kamala Harris. And if we scroll up to the state of Minnesota with its 10 electoral votes, this state is usually a safe Democrat state. It hasn't voted towards the Republican Party since 1970 something. So as you can see in the most recent poll, Donald Trump is starting to gain in the polling. Now, we don't have Harris included in any of the polling yet just because, again, it was recent. But as you can see in the most recent poll, Emerson College does have Donald Trump up by 1 point in the state, making Donald Trump flip the state of Minnesota till a tilt margin. And if we go over to the state of Wisconsin, just like its neighbor, it has 10 electoral votes. We can see in this state, Kamala Harris is dead tied with Donald Trump. Now, when Joe Biden was factored in, we see that Donald Trump was up by 3 or 4 points. But again, if you factor in Kamala, it looks like she is making more of a push than Joe Biden was in this state, giving the state a dead even tie. So we're going to leave this state as a toss-up for this upcoming election. And if we scroll over to the state of Michigan with its 15 electoral votes, we can see in this state, even though, again, these polls were sponsored by the Democratic Party, the most recent poll against Trump and Harris shows that Donald Trump is up 5 points, even if you include Kennedy in the race, making the state of Michigan a likely Republican state. And if we scroll over to the state of Pennsylvania with its 19 electoral votes, this is one of the biggest battleground states in this upcoming election. And as we can see in the most recent poll, we do have Harris and Trump. By the American Greatest, we can see that Trump is up by 2 points in this state, making this state also a tilt margin for Donald Trump. And if we work our way down to Virginia with its 13 electoral votes, we can see in the most recent election poll against Trump and Harris, Trump has 45, Harris has 41. Trump is up 4 points in this state. Now, the state is just like Minnesota and New Mexico, usually a Democratic state in the last couple elections. But again, as you can see, Donald Trump has completely flipped this state to a lean margin for the Republican Party. And if we scroll even more down to North Carolina with its 16 electoral votes, we can see in this state, Donald Trump has won this state both times in 2016 and in 2020, barely. But as you can see in the most recent poll, we do have Trump up by 4 points against Harris, making this state also more of a lean margin for the Republican Party. And if we scroll a little bit more down to Georgia with its 16 electoral votes, we can see in this state of Georgia, Biden did win the state by just a hair in 2020, but Donald Trump won it in 2016. This state usually is more Republican, but Joe Biden did manage to pull it off in 2020 because of Atlanta's metro area. And as you can see in the most recent poll, this state does have Trump up by 2 points if you include Harris. And that is if you include Kennedy in the race, which he will be on the ballot. But again, Trump will be up 2 points in the state of Georgia, making it a tilt margin for the Republican Party. And if we come up to New Hampshire in the northeast part of the United States, one of the only swing states in this part, we can see in the most recent poll included against Harris and Trump, Trump is leading by 1 point in the state, even if you include Kennedy. Now, Kennedy, if he was going to pull off the state, I do see him pulling off New Hampshire. But again, I don't see Kennedy honestly winning any states in this election. So Donald Trump is up 1 point, making him completely flip the state of New Hampshire to a tilt margin for the Republican Party. Now, our last two things on the map is the Nebraska's 2nd district and Maine's general election. Now, in the state of Maine, it is usually trending more and more to the left over time. So I do think the overall election in the state of Maine will go to Kamala Harris just by a tilt margin. And if we come over to Nebraska's 2nd district, this district is usually more college educated, and a lot of college voters, they tend to lean towards more to the left. So I do think Kamala Harris will pull off Nebraska's 2nd district by a tilt margin. And as you can see, this is the final results on our math. Donald Trump is starting to pull off a little bit more states. He is starting to get stronger leads in Nevada and Arizona, but again, he is struggling up here in the Rust Belt. Wisconsin is almost tied, but he is picking off Minnesota and Virginia and New Hampshire, which is big for this upcoming election. As you can see, Donald Trump has 329 electoral votes with Kamala Harris's 199, making Donald Trump the winner of the 2024 election.